Welcome to the Always Right podcast. Welcome to the Always Right. I was trying to figure out which way to do it. Okay.
I let you take control, and look what you did.
That's what happens. So, welcome to the Always Right podcast. Now being normal, I am Jamie Vendera, and
I'm author Carissa DeLay.
And today, I think we should talk about suspense, like writing suspense. How do you write suspense? Not just suspense novels. There is suspense in any fiction book you put out there, but what can you do to grab your audience, to make it suspenseful?
I think there's suspense in, maybe. I guess there's suspense in everything, technically. If you think about like a love story, ooh, the suspense. Are they going to get together? Oh, yeah. I guess there is that. When I think of suspense, I guess for me, I think of like almost like butt clincher type situations.
Yeah, and well, maybe it's because all my books I write with butt clenchers.
Well, yeah, most of my fiction I write more dark, so it's probably why I think more dark. But there are obviously suspense in your love stories, and like that's the whole draw in of your plot is what's happening.
Well, think about it. Years ago when Hallmark Channel first came out, there was suspense. Now it's gone because it's like she met a guy.
You know the prince and the
exactly. I was getting ready to say the prince. Where's the suspense
and the peasant woman are getting together? You know it.
But it's like, for me, suspense is always an element in every fiction novel I write, whether it's YA, horror, mafia. It's always something to pull the reader in and be like, hey, do you, are you going to stay around? Are you going to read with me? Or are you going to drop this book? How many times, Carissa, have you started reading a book, and even by the first chapter, you're like, yeah, it's not pulling me in. But if it leaves you on a cliffhanger, and you're like, what? I got to dive deeper.
So one of my favorite, and this might be cliche for some people, which is a word I'm going to redundantly use today, but I like Stephenie Meyer. Like I like her. It's one of those things I can just enjoy her reading. I don't have to feel like I'm like, I don't know. I like Dan Brown. I like Stephen King. But for the most part, I read a lot of nonfiction. So I don't have whenever I read something, I have to go and have someone who's read it before that I trust their opinions on the writing in order for me to read it. That's fiction. And there's a girl, Michelle, in Ohio, that when she would tell me a book was good, I trusted her opinion because she likes certain types of writing that I would also like. So thank you, Michelle Green. She was like really good with always suggesting good books. Well, with that said, she told me about a book, The Host, that Stephenie Meyer had written after, of course, we got done with the Twilight series years ago. And she's like, it takes about 60 to 70 pages to get interested, but just keep reading. I'm like, okay. So it was probably around page 62-ish that it was just kind of like building. But if she wouldn't have told me that, I may have put the book down because it didn't draw you in right at first. It's kind of like watching that episode of a show and you're like, I don't know, but everybody says it's really good. I should probably watch episode 2. So yeah,
I've done that. I can't even remember any Netflix shows I've done that with, but people are like, oh, dog, you got to get into it. I'm like, are you kidding? Just make it to episode 3. I promise you.
Listen,
and then I would be like, oh, wow, I'm hooked.
Well, that happened with me recently with Peaky Blinders. Everybody would talk about Peaky Blinders, and I was like, what? I mean, other than, the main character, I was kind of like, what's hooking me into this? So I kept watching, and it was so good. I'm glad I stuck with it. But sometimes you're like, who's the original person that stuck with it to tell everybody else it's great? Like, who was that diligent?
Exactly.
Someone was diligent.
I'm going to take one for the team.
Yes, I'm taking it for the team. Just keep going. No, I'm not ignoring you, by the way. I'm still looking. There is a page. It's on the left side of Crystal Gate for a suspenseful page that I'm looking for that I can reference.
All right. Well, then I shall talk for a little bit because if you ask me to talk about a scene in one of my fiction books, no, I can't remember. I will not, because I write so much fiction. I'm like, I know the stories about 5 teens that are fighting monsters, but I can't pull anything off. But like the Feral series, which is about werecats in an apocalyptic time. Knight's Valor.
Put that over here on your left side there. There we go.
Can't you see it?
I'm trying to keep the light. Now
it's too glossy. Knight's Valor, which is kind of like Game of Thrones in a way, in a sense, or Lord of the Rings.
Which you wrote
Kill.
that long before Game of Thrones, right? Though the
Yeah,
series.
that was coming. Yeah, before the series came out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was. We haven't even finished it. I got a third book to finish. Kill factor, kind of like James Bond, with enhanced human being, could do crazy stuff. Shifters, which we talked about, David Noble, Alien. All of these are in different genres, from fantasy to YA fantasy to sci-fi to like kind of not really mafia, but like Jason Bourne type fiction. But the way that I write, there are so many chapters, usually 13, not
Mm-hmm.
because it's the number 13. But we're thinking 13 episodes like it used to be years ago. It was 13 episodes or 20 episodes or 22 or 12, watching a TV series. So we wrote like that when Daniel and I started this together. And I would write 4,000 or 5,000 words, and I'd sum up a one episode of a television series is how I was writing these. So I always ended it on a cliffhanger per se. And you're like, what? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? They're hanging off the edge of the building. Are they going to fall? Oh, we see their last finger slipped off. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't know until the next episode. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, that is suspense. It's always pulled in. Now, writing an actual true suspense novel, I probably don't go that deep into it, except for like Kill Factor is kind of a spy suspense, or the space opera that I've written, like Phoenix Earth or something like that. But I always just want to pull that reader in, just like watching a Netflix show, so they keep coming back.
Right. Yeah. Well, so it's funny, and this is again, we like squirrels on this podcast. We should probably have a few pet ones by the chance of they're always showing up here.
How do you know I don't?
You know,
I got 50 cats.
probably why you wear that toboggan to keep them in your brain. Keep them in there. Keep them nice and warm.
I'm a little nuts.
Well,
All right.
so you said 13. This is a random thought because you're like, oh, don't say 13, like the unlucky. I mean, some people find 13 to be lucky, but I always find it interesting when we go to hotels and they don't have a 13th floor. You realize that the 14th floor is the 13th floor, right?
I know.
It's
All the
like
time I sound
you
like you.
mentally think just because you change the number on the thing that it makes it now not 13.
I've been to hotels like that. I'm like, are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
That is so silly.
I mean, it's a superstition, and people, like superstition, like whatever. So
They should do 12, 12 and 4/4,
no,
14.
they should do 9 3/4. Anyway,
Uh,
back to the squirrel at hand.
okay.
So I am one of those people. I love cliffhangers, especially at the end of a chapter, like for suspense, like what's going to happen.
Yep.
So and I don't reread my books a ton unless I'm like going back through and I'm going to rewrite Crystal Gate. I'm going to read that, of course, or I'm rewriting a chapter. If I'm writing a book currently, I will read from beginning until where I'm at to keep me on the same flow. Like, how do I want this to go in? I can't do the whole like blah, 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 and just like random chapters. I have to kind of like, okay, what was I doing? So I know that it flows together and that the suspense is there. Well, in Crystal Gate, one of the number one talked about things with some of my readers once I would kind of like talk to them again uh, was at the end of chapter 13. Oh, look at that. I didn't realize that was chapter. I was like, what's the next chapter? The next chapter is 14. So chapter 13, let's talk about that. I wrote this one where the main character, she's going up the steps. It's all dark. She goes into her house. Well, it's an apartment above a furniture store. She's just walking. And so, like, as she's walking and she's like trying to make her way through or whatever, these things are making you're feeling kind of creepy, like the chill in the room, like her skin. You're knowing that like there's something going on. And before she just kind of like, her dog was acting weird or whatever. I made sure when Rich edited this, I'm like, make sure you drop down. Like, I don't want like this and then this. I want this and then kind of drop down a little bit and then put it there. I wanted that whole
Yep.
like how I'm writing it. It was like Alexis fell asleep, ... And then it was like drops down. It's like, and he watched. so many people were like, "That creeped me out." Like, I was closing my windows, I was locking my windows. I was like, "Good, that's the feeling I wanted to have. This is fiction, but you were totally creeped out about it." So, I loved that I was able to create that emotion, because sometimes that can be a challenge, is creating an emotion on a page so your reader feels it, to where this one friend of mine, Elizabeth, her mom is my girl's like faux grandma. And Elizabeth told her mom, "I hate the way Carissa's made me feel. I'm so creeped out right now. I feel like he's over my shoulder."
You
And
know
then,
what? But you just you just gave two good point. It's to be suspenseful. It has to bring up some really big emotions.
yeah, you need to,
You know,
solicit those feelings inside your readers. Like,
yeah.
I
Whether
want,
you feel like sick or like you're scared to death, or you're like, oh my gosh, is it really going to happen? Is he really going to propose? Is he really watching her? No way. Is she going to die? You know, you got to be like that. But then you got to be left wondering. You know, at least if you're doing it within the book from chapter to chapter, like what's really going to happen, or even book to book.
mm-hmm,
I love ending books like that, thinking, did they live? No, no, he did not kill the main character. And I'm the one writer who, when you think somebody's safe, well, we talked about the same thing with you.
mm-hmm.
Forget that. I'm not going to follow the formula. I'm going to be like, hey, this could be the main character. He's gone,
Right.
and you didn't even expect it.
And
So
go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So, and I feel like I can say this because it's been so many years since the Twilight books, and I don't care if you don't like Twilight. I
I
do.
like it.
I love it. And if someone's a reader like, "Oh, that's not real literature," I'm not. I loved it. I don't care. I read it with my teenage daughter together, and we got to the final book, Breaking Dawn. It's a large book. I have it right here on my shelf, but it's a large book, and you develop these emotions through these characters, and like halfway through the book, and I'm not spoiling anything for somebody because most people have already read the stuff or seen the movies, but halfway through you start seeing some of the things where potentially the main two characters may die, and she does it in such a way that you think they're going to die because they're preparing, like the characters that have foresight plan something for her so she would know, hey, you're not going to survive this. You need to plan for your daughter. And so you're feeling, I was literally going to shut the book. I was like, she's killing these people. I was in tears. I'm like, no, and so plot twists, they don't, but the whole time you're like, everything is leading up to these two characters dying, but they still have to fight to, even though they know they're going to die, they still have to die to save, whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, sometimes it's kind of like you feel that deep down. You're like, wow.
I tell you, that was suspenseful. We watched Walking Dead, and I'm just going to put this out there because I know a lot of people feel the same way. We quit watching after they killed Carl off.
Uh,
I'm like,
Carl, I didn't even make it that far because I stopped watching when they killed Glenn.
oh yeah, that one. It was tough for me to go on
I
after
know they
that.
did
I
it in the
thought
comics. I don't care. I just, you
that's
were
the
seeing
only
the
reason I
other
was like,
thing.
because we knew, and I'm like, please don't do it, please change it. And
Yeah.
then it was tough because
Yeah.
I hated Negan. I mean, I'm sure like later
Well,
on
you were
everyone
supposed to
likes
hate
him.
his character. You were supposed to hate his
Exactly,
character.
exactly. But I think the before here's the squirrels. What was the one before? And they were in the prison, and that was the one evil character who was killing him. He was fighting with. I can't remember that guy's name before Negan. That's the one I
Oh
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I hated that guy. Just ugh.
yeah.
So
But yeah, so that's kind of like the thing is you want to develop characters, don't make them all likable, you know, give people like this or false sense of hope type thing so that it is suspenseful, like you didn't see it coming, like, oh, I totally didn't see that coming. But at the same time, you want to kind of build that up without that word cliche. Don't do something that's been so overdone. You've said everything's been done, but there are unique ways to recreate things that have been done before. You don't.
absolutely, and I totally agree. I'm just saying everything's been written, but not always through your perspective. And I love what you just said about right unlikable characters. Something that was suspenseful to me was in Walking Dead. I never ever thought I would be like loving Daryl Dixon. Like, dude, he's the one. He's so cool. In the beginning, hated him and his brother. So even though it was like a lighter suspense, it was like, what?
Mhm,
No, okay, he is in his heart. He's a great guy, and he's going to fight for you. And
mhm.
that kind of threw me for a loop. All right,
Yeah, but I mean,
squirrel has left.
yeah, so that's the thing. Whenever you're writing these characters, you want to decide kind of early on, which we've said keeping notes. Welcome back to the water bottle podcast.
All right.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have
I knew as soon as I did it. I can see
soundproofing for your water bottle.
Here's you. Immediately, every time I do, they're like, yeah. I was like, oh, I messed up. I'm in trouble by Mom.
I'm not even trying to do that. I wasn't trying to be like, I was just like, I was gonna wait.
I'm in trouble by my younger mom.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, where were we?
I don't know. Your water bottle interrupted me. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But think about it. Like, who do you? And I feel like if you get to the last chapter and you're like, oh, I gotta kill this person, you may have to go back and put some things in there to make that killing part more suspenseful. You may have to go kind of into there and see where you make that character more likable, where you weren't seeing that coming. Like, oh my gosh, are they gonna die, or are they gonna survive?
That's a great point. That's just like the Hallmark joke we made earlier. Don't write in cookie cutter cut and paste. I don't want to. If I know, I totally saw you were killing that character off. That's not suspense. That's false suspense. You did not do your job. So definitely have some other people read it, and if say, well, did you expect it? Nope, did not expect it. Like, oh yeah, I could see it coming by chapter 3. It was already set up. Change it.
Well,
Don't be married to your writing.
I polled a lot of my readers that I knew for Crystal Gate, the first book, because I had that triangle of 3 characters where it's like, did you see who the devil was? I think I met one person who knew who the devil was, who they were. One. Everybody else is like, I did not see that coming. I didn't see that being the devil because I literally thought it was this person. And I give you both. And when I'm doing that, I'm giving you little, even the conversation that they're having, like little like slides, like, oh, so in my mind, I'm trying to lead you in one direction, but I'm doing that on purpose because they're not lying, but what they're saying is very suspicious. And then I explain later why they're so suspicious. But you just got to think of that. You got to think, if you want someone thinking it's someone else, like right now where I'm doing the serial killer book, I want to lead my reader down a certain path. And I want them to be like, oh my gosh, are they going to catch this guy? Not realizing the whole time there's something else happening that you're not going to see coming. You know what I mean? So you got to keep that in mind. Don't just tell it all of. I mean, if you wanted to be suspenseful, don't give it away too quickly, or give away certain things that lead your reader a certain way to where down the road when you do it, it's like, oh, how did that happen? Or, oh my gosh, I did not see that coming. Now what's going to happen? Now that I know this, all these other things are coming back in, and now I got to rethink how this is going to end.
Well, it's like in The Sixth Sense watching the movie.
Mm-hmm. They tell you everything.
Yeah, and you're like, that's why this was red, that was red, that was red, that was red, and I never, ever caught it until you're like, holy crud, we knew within the first 10 minutes that this guy was dead.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know it.
Well, that's like, I didn't do this as well in the first book with Crystal Gate. Like, I did the suspense part with the who's the devil. You didn't know who the devil was. But when I went into, once you know who the devil is, then it was like on, and then it's kind of like, okay, now this guy's not the devil. Who's the other guy? And so now in the next book, you're like, who is this other person? And you start, so that's why I feel like one day I'm gonna have to write a third one. So we'll tell the other guy's backstory, and who he is. But in this one, the first chapter tells you so much and you don't even know it. And then you go into the second chapter, and I've asked my friend Christine, who I've mentioned before on this podcast, who's reading it. She's right where I want her. I ask her, so what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are some of the thoughts you got going on, like, theory wise? She's right on point where I want her. And that's where I'm not going to give her any kind of other leeway to let her know, like, well, you're thinking that, but you're wrong. Unless she listens to this podcast, and then she'll know she's wrong. Then she's going to be like, dang it, not. Because I told her to stop reading. I'm like, stop reading. Because I'm rewriting a few things. I've changed some stuff around. I've added some new characters. I've readjusted perspective. So, yeah.
Yeah, but if she reads it when it comes out, she'll be like, wait a minute. This is not how I remember it. Now I'm thrown off. That's cool, though.
Yeah, and that's like when I ended Four Rivers, because I wanted to write Four Rivers. So when I ended Crystal Gate, it literally ends, and then I have an epilogue, and it ends to where there's more. It's not like something happens in the very end. You're like, oh my gosh, I need the second book. I heard that a lot. I need that. What's going on? What's happening? So people are wait for Four Rivers to come out, and I don't know. My phone is okay. Whatever. Sorry. But with Four Rivers, it takes off immediately after Crystal Gate. And then when I end Four Rivers, I end it to where there's hope as far as what's happening. So if I never pick it up, you have that like solidified, like, okay, I know where they are. But it also left you where it's like, if I want to know more, can I have a third to see the future of what's going on?
No, I
So,
like that. I like ending. That's kind of how I do all of my books in a sense. That and I've talked about this, like even with Phoenix Earth, which is a duology. I thought about writing Phoenix Mars because it's open ended, set up for it,
mhm,
but it doesn't have to happen. And
mhm,
honestly, probably will if I ever finish these other 11 books. When I finish these
mhm.
other 11
Yeah,
books, then I
win,
will. Yes, then I'll get on to
win.
Phoenix Mars. But I thought might as well not have Daniel design those book covers yet because I got enough on my plate as it is.
Right.
So hey,
You
when I'm
need
down
a
from
checklist.
13 to 11.
You need to put a checklist and like see your order of items that you need to finish. Get your 5:30 in the morning
What I
list.
do is I go to Vendera Publishing to 7-Eleven Press and I scroll down through and I'm like, yep, got to finish that one, that one, that one. Something about seeing the book covers just inspires me.
Well, that's good.
Apparently not too much because I didn't get up right this morning, but now you
Mhm.
gave me direction. In the last podcast, I believe, to start writing Age of the Sigil and finish
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
I am on it.
Okay.
So it's just
Sounds good.
rereading right now is the
Yeah.
problem. So just rereading and not to get off topic like we always do, but you have to keep a checklist too with every book you write so you remember. I have to go back and reread the first three Ages of the Sigil books so everything lines up and I don't make a mistake. Suspense wise, it's the same thing. Even if you're writing chapters, keep aside bullet points notes of this happened, this happened, this happened. So if you
Yeah,
think, wait a
something you
minute,
can refer back to that you remind yourself, like, oh yeah, don't forget, I left them hanging in chapter 3 with this little thing, this little snippet, this little morsel of the story. Make sure you make yourself a note so that way when you go back, you cover that.
yeah, because you're so immersed in the story
You
that
may have
you
mentally
might
thought you
even
did it.
think, yeah, you
Yeah.
think you already did it. So don't
Mhm.
mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, question. So we're obviously writers. We love music. You're a musician. Is there something that you're funny.
Go ahead.
Is there something that you do to prepare either the entire book wise, or do you have a playlist that you listen to while you're writing, or do you write in quiet? How do you do that?
That is such a good question because we're probably opposite on that. You would think I would listen to music.
Hmm.
No, I like it to be quiet. Now, said like if my wife's watching TV, I can drown that out and focus and do it. But if I had music playing, no, I don't think I could. And I'm a multitasker, but it's just I'm so into the story. I would more or so hear like orchestrated music playing in my head, like dun, dun, dun,
Hmm.
dun, 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 dun. So if I heard a rock song on it, wouldn't have the same effect. So I let that background music run in my mind as I'm writing, and I think more along those lines.
No, we're
But
actually
that's not just me.
we're on the same page with that because when I'm writing, it has to be quiet.
Okay,
And but
I
then I
figure you
have that
said
music.
you're listening to 21 Pilots or something. Well,
I mean,
I could
I
see
yes,
you doing it.
so, but not when I'm physically writing. Now, when I'm not physically writing, say I'm driving, I'm at the grocery store, I'm like doing something random, like folding clothes or something, and I'm trying to get in my head how I want to carry into the next chapter or something like that. I have certain music I like to listen to inspire me to develop a chapter or develop something more in the story or a plot twist or different things about a character. I will listen to certain types of music based on my characters or a chapter or an overall theme. Do you ever
Okay.
do that?
No, I think I go into my own little squirrel head and just I shut
Oh,
everything out. But that's
your
probably too
squirrels
because
have file cabinets.
yes, well I put the cap on so they can't escape. But like you brought up, but since I'm up so early in the morning writing anyway, she could
Mhm.
still be asleep. So I enjoy the quiet. It's like the dog, the cats are still asleep. It's dark out. The only light I can see is on my iPad because I write on an iPad, or I have literally written books. I think I can't remember how many of the last few books I've written on my iPhone. Yes, I'm a nut.
I can't do that. My fingernails get in the way, and I can't type like that. I have to use my
Yeah,
keyboard.
well, the thing is I have as many typos this way as I do using text to speech, so it's still there's a lot of work going back and deciphering what I
I feel
wrote.
sorry for Rich. I feel sorry for Rich.
Well, I do clean it up a bit, so I'll make sure they're spelled correctly. Luckily, because I can see all the little red lines under the 50 words and the 3 paragraphs that need corrected.
That's funny. Um, so I am the opposite when it comes to that. Like I said, I have to have if I'm hitting something where I'm like, I need a feeling, I need an emotion, I need something. Well, and I think I texted you um about 6 months ago, and I was like, I knew how I wanted Canvas to end as far as like the trifecta of what would technically happen. I didn't have a setting, I didn't have like the actual details of what I wanted to happen, but I had the idea of how I it's kind of like I had the theme. I had the what I wanted to come to pass as far as for the ending, but I didn't have the details of location, what the scenery would look like. I didn't have any of that. So that's kind of for me, even with Crystal Gate, I had the ending for Crystal Gate when I had that dream. So I was kind of writing to get to the ending. This one, I had the plot and the beginning. I didn't have an ending. I didn't know I didn't know where I wanted it to end. I just had to figure out how to develop that. And music did that for me. And I was specifically Dark on Me by Starset that actually was my ending for that one. And I think that's the
Did you
only
hear that, Dustin?
yeah,
Carissa uses star set music.
for the ending,
To,
yes.
yep.
And I mean, but I've got 21 Pilots. So 21 Pilots, though, the thing is, they give me a very good feel. I love 21 Pilots. They're like they say in their songs, the song sounds pretty upbeat, but it's actually pretty dismal. Um,
You know what's funny? I'm not saying this because Dustin's been one of my vocal students, and I love Starset. I
mhm,
probably could listen to all the stars, put them in a playlist and listen to Starset songs,
mhm.
and write Phoenix Mars,
Oh,
because
oh,
to me,
absolutely.
if I listen to Starset music, it's very cinematic, it's very
Mhm.
orchestrated, and that's
Oh
kind
yeah,
of what's playing in my head. And I just love how he ebbs and flows with his voice from falsetto to screaming. So I'm like, yeah, that could totally
yeah.
guide me, and that would be like the one instance.
Yeah, and I feel like, but so the lyrics in that one, where it's kind of like you have something and it just goes dark on you. You weren't seeing that thing go dark on you. That's how I'm in my ending. You didn't see this coming. You didn't see this character as a dark character, or maybe you did, and the other character didn't see them as dark. However you perceive it, either way, that kind of when I was listening to that, I was like, I just figured out how I'm going to end this. And there's been times that like which I love. I had a Imagine Dragons Demons is completely Crystal Gate. I have for the first book. Someone's like, this is literally that book. You know, when you're talking about the devil and his personality, like his demons inside, and trying to be something he's not. Um, but I find that Kaleo. I don't know if you've ever listened to Kaleo. Uh,
No, I know of Cleo, but I know.
yeah, so there's a couple songs in there that he has that kind of fit with my male character. Um, and then recently, okay, and I'm not a Swiftie. My daughter's a Swiftie. So she of course makes me listen to all the songs. And for the most part, I'm not into like like the folklore.
Makes you listen.
Well, I literally sent her a text today that said, I'm not listening to the Reputation album on repeat. Why do you ask? Because she has a couple songs on there that I'm like, this is totally my character right now. And so there's a couple that I'm like, I've got to get that emotion into this. And it's just like a couple songs there. But I mean, even when we go see Taylor, she's like, we're dressing like Reputation because you like black and all that stuff. I'm like, yes, let's do that. But now I realize
you
that's my
you know
album.
you and you say you don't, but you rarely listen to music when you write. but like you're a tattoo artist and you've done
Mhm.
several tattoos on
Oh
me.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's when I first heard Kaleo. I'm pretty sure you played some Kaleo.
probably. Yeah, I have to have
When
that kind of music. Star Set, Kaleo, Imagine Dragons,
yeah,
21 Pilots, Alanis Morissette, things like that have to be on when I'm tattooing because that's a different
Luke
type.
Bryan,
What is it?
Luke Bryan,
No.
Luke Bryan.
Do you? No, I mean, I know people love
I'm
that.
just joking.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I like some chicks. I like the chicks,
Yeah.
so I can listen to some Kill. Let's get rid of Earl
Oh,
there.
I like country. I grew up with Waylon and Willie and all that. But yeah, I was just trying to throw you because Luke Bryan, that's way off the scene of what you would be doing from the other music. So
Wow, you just sounded like a country Kermit the Frog.
I did. Well, I listen, Luke. No disrespect. I dig your songs, but I'm like when he's singing that, it reminds me of that. This is my type of life. So I love to do impressions. I could go into hey Bobby, I'm selling propane accessories.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so all
And
kinds of
here
stuff we
we
could
go.
do.
The cartoon squirrels are now out.
Exactly. See, you got to reel me in.
Yeah,
I got to pull this down a little more. Stay in
yeah.
there,
Tighten your
squirrels.
cap, Jamie. Tighten the cap.
Okay.
All right. So some of the tips that I want to kind of reiterate for suspenseful writing is the cliche thing. Don't be cliche because your reader will see it coming. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that,
Yes.
yeah, unless you're writing a Scream movie, cliches are not necessary.
The baker killed him with the candlestick. Like the clue.
Mhm.
Don't do what's already been done.
You can
If you
do
saw it,
well. That's not a true statement because you
do
have
it in
to
your own way,
right.
though.
You can
Yes.
recreate something that's been done in a different light, in a different
Well,
way. Or
that's
yeah,
my whole thing was saying nothing's new, but do it in your own way. So, like, if I watched a movie, it's like I can't believe he stuck him in both eyes with the forks and twist him. That's how it ended. And then you copy that and paste it.
yeah,
No, at
yeah.
least use some wine openers, the corkscrews, and
Right.
do something a little different.
Well, and that's the thing. People write vampire books. Lots of vampire books,
Constantly, yeah.
and people literally make fun of Stephanie Meyer because she made her vampires glitter like diamonds. You're making fun
But
of
it
her,
was
but
different.
she did something different. She did something creative. She took a whole the whole like vegan vampire or the vegetarian vampires that don't that don't, bleed humans dry. I mean, it's a different take. Why are you mad? Because she did something different and it was successful?
Yeah, she's done what's been done, but she did it in her own way. And honestly, that's why we signed Catherine Horsley. She's a lot more dark with hers.
Right.
Everyone, when Twilight came out, everyone was writing, "Oh, baby, teenage vampires, and they're in love." Copying, not just that
Yeah.
Vampire Diaries. I love Vampire Diaries. I thought it was a great show.
I stopped at
So
I stopped at season 6, episode 2.5, I think.
I can't remember what happened then, but I'm assuming she switched to the other brother.
Well, no. I was happy when she switched to the other brother. I was disappointed when it was like, "Oh, wipe my memory." I'm like, "Oh, here we go. I'm not doing this. Just
Yeah,
stay
yeah,
together."
yeah.
And then I already
The
yeah,
the last season was kind of so but I had to finish it. And then
yeah,
of course I watched the originals, Legacies. I got caught up
yeah.
and had to watch everything.
But
So
speaking of Catherine Horsley, so the cool thing about her books, because this is not she did it in a different way.
yep.
She has a gory, sort of like um vampire book with, like a lot of intense, it's not made for children type book. But the thing is, she did it in a way that is kind of unique because she did a journal, and it's more like a journal of his life, of Nicholas Ryder, is his life. So, which we're going to have her on here in a few weeks. And she created a different way of looking at it, versus like telling it from that other story, a third person. It's in that omniscience. She's given you the vampire's life from his perspective with his lust for blood and human flesh.
Yep, so it isn't your Twilight book. It isn't a rip off of
It's
Twilight.
no, but that doesn't mean Twilight should be disregarded as sorry, I'm very defensive, okay? I really like my Twilight book.
No, I like Twilight. Trust me, I'm on the same game. But my point is, everyone says they hate it, but it's the same thing with 50 Shades of Grey. Oh, what a horrible writer! Yet everybody suddenly became an author, and you saw Kindle and Amazon flooded with
That genre.
50 hues of ecstasy and and
Yeah, don't
daylight,
do that. Don't do that.
moonlight. Yes, so don't do that.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, nothing's new, so that Twilight can inspire you, but how
Yeah.
can you take it to the next level?
Right. Yeah.
Vampire Diaries and Twilight, teenagers in high school, vampires, werewolves, but they're not really nothing alike. They
Hmm.
still tell their own story. So tell your own story.
Yeah. And when it comes to suspense, kind of if maybe watch some stuff or read other suspenseful books, kind of see where they're going with that, how they portray that. If you're not sure how you want to do that, do your research, kind of get in the mode of how did they lead you in this direction to make you feel like anxious or, like clenching your butt cheeks, type
Exactly.
thing. I
Butt
mean,
clenchers.
what
Write some butt
clincher?
clenchers. We will be happy. All right,
Yeah.
so start being suspenseful.
Yes. Yes. Alrighty. Well, this is our time, and I'm gonna finish this one just because Jamie kind of like took off on the beginning part when he then I gave him the
I
reins.
thought I did great. All my
He did.
personalities came through, and they
Yeah.
did really well.
Yeah.
So,
All those squirrels kind of pushed the button there.
but all of us will let you in the podcast.
Okay.
You go for it.
All right. So again, thank you for listening. But before we go, make sure you go to our socials. We are on TikTok. We are on Threads. We're on Instagram. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter. I feel like I'm saying Prince's name. Prince, formerly
Yeah,
or the symbol formerly known as Prince.
the
Um,
website formerly known as Twitter.
yeah. Yes. Exactly. You can follow us on Facebook. You can also reach out to us, the Always Right podcast, just like it says on any of our listening platforms. You can go to YouTube. Please push that subscribe button so that way we can get some followers on there. Reach out to us, like I said, on our email, alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com, and ask questions that pertain to writing, pertain to questions of the topics that we went over. And we'll be sure to get back to you if you kind of like, don't just randomly email us and expect me to answer back. I don't do that.
Yep.
Yeah, I answer ones that talk about writing, that talk about topics that we've covered on here. Those are the things we want to hear, that we want to share. If you have an idea for an upcoming podcast episode, please let us know. And you can just reach out to us. So without further ado, and until next time, keep writing, always right. And I am author Carissa DeLay, and this is my
Au-
co-host
Author Jamie Vendera, and we'll see you
and
in the next
Squirrel
podcast.
Herder. Squirrel
Yes,
Herder. That's your new name.
I'm
All right.
trying to
Thanks
hold him
for
in there.
Yeah, thanks for listening.